Okay, so today we're doing something a little different. We're going to completely deconstruct the architecture of high-level leadership. You see, we aren't going to focus on what to do, but rather how to think. Because here's the secret. CEOs don't make better decisions because they're somehow smarter than everyone else. They just think differently. And in the next 8 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how. To get there, we've got a clear roadmap. We'll start with the CEO mindset, move into escaping cognitive traps, and then break down the exact filters used for high-stakes decisions. After that, we'll look at some real-world strategic trade-offs, and finally, how you can apply this thinking immediately. All right, let's dive right into Section 1, the CEO mindset, and what it actually means to think beyond the obvious. You know, there's this really common myth out there that world-class leaders just magically have all the answers. But honestly, the reality is the exact opposite. Top-tier executives are actually wired with exceptionally high curiosity and surprisingly low ego. They're incredibly inquisitive. They literally view vulnerability as an asset. They're out there actively seeking trusted voices just to point out their own blind spots. Because at that level, they aren't trying to prove they're right. They're just trying to figure out what they're missing. And this brings us to a massive differentiator, applied curiosity. Now, we all know what regular curiosity is, right? But applied curiosity is this relentless questioning of how things work and then instantly wondering, well, how could this work better? It's a true habit of mind. This kind of discipline helps executives constantly look forward. They're mapping out future possibilities instead of just reacting to whatever fires happen to be burning today. Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn, actually hit the nail on the head with this. He says one of the most unique characteristics he looks for is an infinite learning curve. The absolute best leaders are constantly sifting through massive amounts of raw information, just looking for patterns. But here's the real kicker. They are totally willing to unlearn what they already know so they can explore brand new what-if scenarios, which is absolutely crucial for navigating an unpredictable future. But look, curiosity alone isn't going to save you if your brain is secretly sabotaging your judgment. So let's look at Section 2, Escaping Cognitive Traps, the Hidden Decision Killers. Because no matter how experienced a leader is, they're still human, right? Which means they're vulnerable to cognitive biases that can totally derail strategic planning. Researchers have flagged a few that are especially dangerous. First up is the base rate fallacy. This is when leaders get satisfied with, say, a really limited or just straight-up incorrect sample of data, and then they generalize from it. Then you've got escalation of commitment. We've all seen this. It's when a leader stubbornly doubles down on a failing plan just because they can't bring themselves to admit a mistake. And finally, the illusion of control. Basically, our tendency to wildly overestimate how much we can actually control outcomes. Honestly, just acknowledging that your own brain will naturally distort reality is step one to fixing it. But there's another hidden killer creeping in, and Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman calls this noise. So if bias is a systematic deviation, noise is the unwanted, totally unpredictable variability in our judgments. It sneaks into everything from strategic planning down to routine performance reviews. So how do top teams cut through all that noise? They conduct decision audits. They make sure to preserve independent judgments to avoid groupthink, and they enforce really strict decision hygiene. It's all about making sure that clear, unclouded choices just become second nature. All right, so once you've successfully cleared that noise out, how do you actually make the right call when the pressure is at its absolute highest? Let's get into Section 3, Filters for High-Stakes Decisions. See, when a crisis hits, real leaders don't just wing it. They fall back on proven architecture. And one of the most effective frameworks out there is the OODA loop. It was originally developed in the military for rapid decision-making in insanely competitive, high-stakes environments. And it works in the boardroom, too. A former SWAT team commander turned CEO actually used this exact methodology to steer a major public company right through massive economic downturns. So what is it? OODA stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act. It's a loop. First, you systematically gather data without panicking. Then you orient, meaning you process that data against reality. Then you make a choice, even if you have totally incomplete information. And finally, you act decisively. The whole secret sauce here is velocity. The leader who can cycle through this four-step loop faster than the crisis itself is evolving. That's the leader who wins. And this brilliantly illustrates another absolutely crucial framework, the two-speed model. IBM CEO Arvind Krishna used this during some massive disruptions. To stop the whole organization from just freezing up in a panic, he literally split his focus. You have one dedicated crisis management team handling the immediate, burning threats, things like health, safety, and employee confidence. And by deliberately walling that off, The rest of the organization can maintain its speed, focusing purely on running the core business and planning for the future.
Okay, so we've got the mindset and we've got the frameworks. But what happens when the theory meets the real world? Let's check out Section 4, Real-World Strategic Trade-Offs. Now, I want you to pause for just a second here. Seriously, think about it. Which of these decisions would you make under pressure? Put yourself in the CEO's shoes for a moment as we look at two very different ways to handle a strategic trade-off. First, let's look at a case study of, well, misaligned execution. Fortune Brands tried to pull off this massive centralization strategy. They asked hundreds of employees to uproot their lives and relocate across the country to a single headquarters in Chicago. The goal? Unify operations. Makes sense on paper, right? But the actual result was a massive talent drain, completely plummeting morale and a stall in sales growth. It was so disruptive that the CEO actually ended up leaving before the relocation was even finished. It's a pretty stark reminder of what happens when a big strategic move totally loses sight of the human capital you actually need to pull it off.
On the flip side, let's look at how prioritizing stakeholders can play out during a massive crisis. When the pandemic first hit, Unilever's CEO Alan Jope didn't just instantly panic and optimize for short-term shareholder cash flow. Instead, he rolled out a strict three-step multi-stakeholder model. Week 1, secure employee jobs and income. Week 2, focus on community response and prop up their small suppliers. It wasn't until week 3 that they pivoted to managing business cash flow and supply lines. Taking that kind of long-term view builds immense organizational resilience, and it prevents the exact kind of structural collapse we just saw in that last example. We've covered a ton of ground today, from applied curiosity to the OODA loop and stakeholder priorities. So let's move directly into our final section, how you can take all this and apply it immediately. Because look, true leadership isn't some quick hack. It's a continuous, rigorous climb. Great leaders pursue excellence with the exact same commitment as an elite athlete. They completely reject shortcuts. They apply extreme discipline to their decision-making process. If you really want to think like a CEO, you have to commit your whole self to getting better every single day. You've got to constantly be asking yourself, okay, what am I missing here? Just to root out those pesky blind spots. And finally, you ascend by helping the people around you. The highest performers out there know that fine-tuning your own decision-making doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It happens when you sit down and patiently guide others to critically think through their own challenges. When you lift up your peers and your team, you're actually pressure testing your own assumptions. And more importantly, you're building a legacy that's going to outlast any single strategic decision you ever make. The tools are right in front of you. Ultimately, it's not about having all the answers. No one does. It's about asking the right questions faster and with more clarity than anyone else in the room. If this changed how you think about decisions, save this explainer for later. Come back to it the next time you're staring down a high-stakes call. Until next time, keep questioning.